This is an exhibit of Herman Schnitzmeyer, who was a philosopher and photographer, moved to Montana in 1910 to homestead on the Flathead Indian Reservation. He located his homestead on Wild Horse Island and was the first person to prove up on a homestead there. He wasn't much of a farmer or rancher, more of a philosopher, wrote extensive journals about his personal philosophy, and eventually he opened a Polson studio in Polson where he did scenic photography and as well as studio photography. He was a very poor businessman because he would rather be out in the mountains photographing scenes rather than keeping regular business hours. This is a picture of him in 1913 after he had overwintered on Wild Horse Island. He was looking pretty rugged. He had spent the whole winter out there by himself. A lot of people thought he was starving to death, but occasionally they'd see a little candlelight in his window. This is what he normally looked like in civilian life. This is him standing on the bridge at Polson. He was a huge man, about 300 pounds. At the end of his life, he literally starved to death because he was too proud to accept charity. He lived in the Penwell Apartments here in Missoula, just across from the Milwaukee Depot there. And he was buried here in the pauper section by the county because he didn't have any money. However, if you look at his list of friends at the time, his list of pallbearers were some of the prominent citizens of Montana. Bob Ward, the founded Bob Ward Sporting Goods. Kenneth Vincent was a prominent pharmacist here. Arceel Henry, who ran the Penwell Apartments and Penwell Hotel. He was very well respected, although by 1939 he had faded into such obscurity that both his cemetery interment permit and his death certificate have his name spelled wrong. In fact, his death certificate has him as Henry Schnitzmeyer instead of Herman Schnitzmeyer. Brochures, his photography was used by the Chamber of Commerce to promote Western Montana, Glacier National Park, a lot of Northern Pacific stuff. This being his signature piece is of the Mission Range, Mount Harding to McDonald Peak, and this is called the Sheep's Head right here, West McDonald Peak, which in the spring and in the fall gets this, if you see what looks like a sheep's head facing there, and it's just the way the snow falls on the rock formations. This is Chief Custata at the Falls of the Pend Oreille, which is now buried by Kerr Dam. He did a series that day of 5 of these. This one called Memories, where Custata's looking at his clay pipe, and this is another one at the Falls of the Pend Oreille. These were hand tinted by his partner Louis Desch. He also documented a lot of Polson scenes, like this is a 4th of July parade. This photo here is an Indian encampment right at Polson. Again, that's a hand-tinted Desch. This photo is from his homestead on Wild Horse Island. This was taken in 1912. This is an original mounting that he did with the mulberry mounting. This is looking from his homestead up on Wild Horse Island across Flathead Lake towards the missions in the moonlight. Now to accomplish this at that time, the guy took fairly skilled photography. When he first started he made his living basically selling postcards because that was something that the homesteaders could afford to buy and to send back to their relatives to show that they were being successful out here. And so, a lot of them, the postcards that he took were only printed maybe 1 or 2 of them. So they're very, very rare. They weren't duplicated to the extent that we think of postcards today. They were done as a personal thing for individuals. He operated for a while out of Rollins and then out of Dayton, Montana. Dayton used to be a lot bigger town than it is today. And then in the 19-teens, there was 600 or 700 people there. He sold his land on Wild Horse Island in 1917 and opened his studio in Polson. Was there till about 1923 when he sold out to his apprentice Julius Myers. And in about 1924, he sold a lot of his negatives to a man called Johann Rohde. And Rohde took his stuff to Berkeley, California, and figured out that Schnitzmeyer was so busy taking photos that he never bothered to copyright a lot of it. And so Rohde duplicated all of these and started selling them all over the country under name. So for all of the photos that you'll see signed Schnitzmeyer, you'll usually see a later print done signed Rohde, but Rohde never took any of them. He was just, using Schnitzmeyer's artistic achievements and marketing it. And this was his old cemetery marker right here that I dug up several years ago. I found it just by stabbing a knife in the ground here, and it was right at this spot. And the Garden City Memorial is doing a granite one. They're paying for the whole thing, and they're doing a demonstration up here right now with his name on it, with an outline of this photograph and an inscription from his journals. And they're doing it as a demonstration as to how monuments are made, and that'll be mounted on this new piece of concrete. So the existing piece is going into my collection. I've got about 800 Schnitzmeyer originals. He was actually very famous in his day, sold literally thousands and thousands of photos, and it's so strange that by the time of his death he was totally obscure. That nobody, he'd faded from history, and he was only 59 years old. Yeah.